The Edmonton Oilers just got embarrassed on home ice last night by the Dallas Stars in a 8-3 defeat. And in this game, we saw Stuart Skinner give up 4 goals in the first period before being relieved from the game for Calvin Pickard. And on top of that, we've been hearing some heavy rumors about a potential Jordan Binnington and Stuart Skinner swap. So I figured it was the perfect time to come on and talk about this potential deal, my thoughts on it, and if it's truly the right move for Edmonton and for St. Louis. Now, the Edmonton Oilers have made back-to-back Stanley Cup finals, but once again, they've had a slow start to the season. They have a 10-10-5 record, and they have the worst save percentage in the NHL as their team save percentage is barely over .860. And with Connor McDavid signing a 2-year extension, the Oilers have 3 seasons to win a Stanley Cup with him. And it's pretty clear at this point that they are not going to be able to do it with Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard as their tandem. And a report coming from Nick Kypreos linked Jordan Binnington to the Edmonton Oilers. He said that the Oilers are also seeking if they can find a defenseman out of St. Louis in the same deal. And the deal would be mostly built around Stuart Skinner going back to St. Louis. And Elliot Friedman added on to this, saying that with the St. Louis Blues struggling to start the year, it seems that they could enter a potential retool here, get off some of their veteran players and bigger contracts. And Jordan Binnington is a guy who, at 32 years old, is not going to be a part of the future there. We also had Frank Seravalli come out and talk about how he believes that the Oilers and Stan Bowman are going to have a couple more weeks to see if the goaltending can sort itself out. And if not, then we're going to see Bowman make a move. However, this was before the 8-3 thumping last night. So you'd have to imagine that a deal is going to be on the horizon very soon. Now, Jordan Binnington has not been good this year. He has an .880 save percentage, a 5-5-4 record, and the Blues as a team have really struggled. However, we know that Binnington, he has that ability to step up in the big moments. Obviously, in 2019, he was phenomenal during that playoff run, won a Stanley Cup as a rookie. And then we've seen him have a couple more moments. He was really good in the 2022 playoffs, as well as showing up in the Four Nations final last year and winning the championship with Canada. He's going to be one of the goaltenders representing Canada at the 2026 Olympics in Milan as well. Now, I'm not going to put all the blame on Stuart Skinner. Edmonton definitely has some issues defensively, but Binnington's ability to play the puck and get the breakout started could actually be pretty useful, I believe, decreasing their time in the defensive zone. And Stuart Skinner, he struggled a lot this year too, an .878 save percentage. And obviously, he hasn't been good enough to push Edmonton over the top and win. We have seen some flashes, though. He'll have moments where he looks unbeatable, like the last 2 conference finals. He's been really good against Dallas, but he's ultimately just way too inconsistent. But on a team like the St. Louis Blues, you have a guy like Joel Hofer there who hasn't been good this year, but showed a lot last year. It seems like the Blues think that Stuart Skinner could be great in a tandem role potentially, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think Stuart Skinner could be a fine goalie as a 1B, but I don't think you're going to win a Stanley Cup with Stuart Skinner. He's also 27 years old, so he's 5 years younger than Binnington. He fits their window a bit more. He is a UFA, though, so you're going to have to sign him to an extension. And the Blues themselves aren't really a good defensive team either. Obviously, Jim Montgomery, he's a good coach, but hasn't had that success this year that we've seen over the last few. So I don't really know if Stuart Skinner would perform that well in St. Louis. Now, what would this trade actually look like? It would be difficult because you have Skinner making $2.6 million this year. You have Jordan Binnington making $6 million for the next 2 seasons. And the Oilers basically have no cap space. The Blues are very limited on cap space as well. Plus, if the Oilers are trying to acquire a defenseman in this deal as well, that's going to be more difficult. And the only defenseman that I think really makes a ton of sense for them is Colton Parayko. However, he makes $6.5 million for the next 5 seasons. If the Oilers were to acquire Parayko, there's going to be draft capital and prospects involved as well. They don't have their first this year, but they have their first over the next 2 seasons. And the Blues, they are lacking some draft picks as well. They don't have a second round pick in 2026 or 2027, so we could see that going the other way potentially. And overall, I understand the motives for these teams. However, I just really can't put together a trade that makes sense. So these GMs, they're going to have to get creative. There's no more double retention allowed with the new CBA. However, at the end of the day, the Oilers, they need to acquire a goalie who's going to have a better shot at winning Connor McDavid a Stanley Cup. And for St. Louis, you're sort of entering a retool, it seems like. You're probably going to move off of guys like Braden Shen. Obviously, Binnington. Does a guy like Cam Fowler go? You've got Justin Falk as well. Is Jordan Kyrou going to be on the move? There's a lot to talk about there. So as we lead up to the deadline, we'll talk more about the St. Louis Blues and other teams that are going to sell, other teams that are going to buy. Plus, there's going to be World Juniors content, Olympic content, NHL trade deadline, and eventually the playoffs and everything in between. So if you like this type of content, hit that sub button. We just hit 500 recently, so I really appreciate that milestone. Thank you guys so much. And let me know your thoughts down below. I'll see you in the next one.